Hello, and welcome to the Kaizen Academy podcast. I'm Justin, and I'm here with my co-host Cal. So today's episode is going to be about how to upskill while you're working full time, right? Because you're working 9 to 5, but it's still important that you're constantly improving. Because otherwise, how are you going to find a better job or just generally improve, right? And that's going to be the topic for today. How do we not just study, I guess, but more generally improve ourselves in terms of our career, in terms of building skills. But before that, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, or you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as the Kaizen Academy podcast. But how have you
Okay.
been, Cal?
Yo, I feel like I always start with that, and you pointed that out as well. But anyway, sorry. I just came just yesterday. Freaking went to. I mean, we said this in the last podcast
Mm-mm.
that you've moved out,
You were
you're doing
thinking about
well,
moving out?
yeah, and you've got me on, you got me hyped. So like, yeah, went back to. Oh no, went out to Redfern yesterday.
Okay.
Went for an inspection.
Yeah.
And like just honestly one of those moments that like clicked to me where I'm like, oh, I really feel like an adult now. Like this is adult activities that I'm partaking in now.
Definitely doing
Going
house
out there,
inspections.
yeah, going house inspections, like going walking around, like talking to the landlord, right, talking to the landlord and kind of having those discussions about applications and everything like that. But I went out with David, and I feel like she got the wrong idea. She thought like we were a couple kind of thing. I was getting that vibe.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I just went with it. There's no need to like, oh
So
no, we're not together. But like, it's just me and Pang are moving out, and we're really keen on it, and we're
yeah,
like
yeah,
really trying to butter her up and like talk
yeah.
nice and stuff. But yeah, that was just a new experience. Yesterday, like went out. I don't know. I just,
You reckon
I
you
think
got
you met.
you reckon you
Oh
got
yeah,
brownie points for that? It's like, okay, nice stable couple is gonna move into into
yeah, yeah.
my apartment.
That was what I was hoping. So I was like, you know what? If she's under that impression, let her have it, and
Mm,
maybe we'll play to our benefit a little bit.
yeah.
I was like, yeah, no, so we'll see, Fingers crossed.
Turns out she's super homophobic.
Oh, dude.
You don't want to live there anyway.
Oh, I should have clarified. Oh yeah, true. I don't want to be in a building with a homophobe, man.
Yeah. So it was the landlord, not the real estate agent that was there, or were they
Oh, I
both
don't know
there?
actually. Like, see, this is stuff I'm still like really figuring out. Yeah, I was
Mm.
like, is it? Would that be the agent, or would that be the landlord?
Oh, okay.
Um, oh, actually, you know what? I take that back. It might have been the agent. Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm. Oh, that sounds good. And what did you think of the place?
Oh, real nice. Like, I
Yeah.
think. But right now, I'm scared to like. I just want to check my biases
Mm.
because I'm so keen on moving out.
Mm.
Every place might look good to me. So yeah, no, it's good. Good to bounce it off you, bounce it off. I remember bouncing it off Christine as well. All of our friends who have already moved out, who like a bit more like seasoned veterans, I guess.
Mm.
Kind of just sending it to them and kind of seeing how they feel about it. But generally speaking, I think I'm pretty happy, and my bar is pretty low. I think I'm just happy to be out. Like I will be happy to be out, closer
Mm.
to work, in the city a little bit,
Independence.
independent. Yeah,
Oh,
all that good stuff.
hopefully that goes well, man. And then we can hang out in the city because like you're
Fingers
one
crossed.
you're one station away from me if you end
Yeah.
up moving there.
Oh, dude, I'm so keen. Oh, I'm so keen.
But yeah, I guess studying while having a full-time job. So I just wanted to first talk about why this should be a thing, right? Because I feel like growing up, a bit of the sentiment was, yeah, you do your degree and that kind of sets you up for the rest of your career. This is kind of how it was in the olden days. I'm
Yeah.
guessing. I don't know if that's actually how it was, but that was my impression growing up. It's like you do all of your studying, and then once you're done with uni, you're out. You don't need to learn anymore.
Mm.
You just work, and then that's it. You become a manager. Maybe you build your people skills or whatever. But I feel like nowadays it's a lot more important to be constantly learning, constantly sharpening your skills in order to succeed in like the modern world.
Yeah. Now, you know what? Like, I think one of the facets of that would definitely be the rate at which technology is being driven right now.
Mm,
Like, I mean, we work in, I mean, you work in tech. I feel like I work in tech kind of. But the thing is, when you're in this space, and what I'm getting a lot from when I start to talk to other people, managers, and like just other people who kind of a few years down their careers, like they're just like, to keep up, to be able to hold relevant conversations with customers, clients, and things like that. You just have to be across what's new, and you have to be constantly upskilling, or else you're going to be left behind. And I feel like you are kind of right to say, like, in the olden days a little bit, back in the days when things weren't growing so exponentially, right? Especially in this space. But I think especially for my job, it's like, oh man, if I don't know what's popping this year or what's popping in the next 5 years, you can really be like left behind very quickly.
Mm. And I guess I feel like so now we've established that for a lot of jobs nowadays, especially in tech, I guess if you're not improving, you're falling behind. But I feel like if you take a very thoughtful approach to how you learn, right? Not just whatever comes my way, I would just like learn about it then. But if you're very thoughtful and very systematic with it, you can actually be ahead of the curve in terms of you're not falling behind. You're constantly getting ahead of like your of what you would have been or like of your cohort, right? And I think that's very good because if you have to study anyway, you may as well do it well and get a lot out of it.
Yeah,
So
most people will definitely be like taking a more passive approach, like whatever comes their way. I think any kind of effort in this realm will yield some serious benefit. You put you ahead of the curve, like you said. For me though, I haven't actually had a lot of experience with this, just because I don't know. I feel like I'm up. I'm in the camp of having a lot of things come into my way, like come in my way. Like, I mean, right now I've only started like grad programs. I've only done internships, so most of my even working career is definitely just, hey, can you learn this, please? Can you like get across these technologies, these architectures before we actually throw you in the deep end or something like that? So this is very interesting because I know being this close to you, like that you've taken definitely a much more proactive approach to a lot of this, but I've never actually put much thought into this. And I think it's like probably one of the other things that I wanted to kind of mention was just how terrible I went through the first few years of uni, as I've mentioned so many times. And it was so weird. It's such a weird like mentality that I was in at the beginning. It's like not really having this expectation that I had to continue to learn. Like I literally finished my HSC and I was like, yeah, I put in my hard yards. I deserve to have a break now. And then I was like, I don't know what in my head was like, what told me was like, oh yeah, you studied so damn hard right now. Uni is gonna be chill. Like you just kind of float through uni and you'll be fine, right? And then kind of learning it the hard way 4 years in, it's like, oh, I have to actually put in effort to continually like grow, right? And I know it sounds so stupid. You literally go to uni to learn, right? But something in my head was just like, okay, I guess I approached like a sprint almost. Like the HSC, I overworked myself, and I was just like, nah, I cannot. And I wanted to just take a break and not do anything for the next couple of years. And so that when the next chapter came around, I didn't learn, right? And I think the hard truth was just like late into like fourth year, fifth year, I was like, oh, this learning process is gonna be with me forever. And that's what I've been trying to regulate. Like going into the like work as well. Like you said before, was like a lot of us, or maybe traditionally speaking, it's, oh yeah, you've already learned everything at uni. You're set. Go find your job and settle in, right? But now it's like I've really regulated that the expectations of going into full time. It's not necessarily, hey, you've already done your hard yards. Like now you can somehow just float through your career. It's like, okay, like you finished learning that part. Now you're gonna do some more learning. And I think having the right expectations has been really, really important, because at uni, it was so painful to go, I don't need to learn anymore. And then realize the hard way that, oh, I do. And then, whereas now it's like, I kind of see it coming, like all the things that they throw at me so that I can upskill and get ready for like my next role, whatever it is. It's like, I see it coming, like, yeah, no, I'm ready for this. This is what I'm supposed to be doing, right? Like learning is a part of like my life now. And I kind of, I don't know, see it for the positives and embrace it. Try to embrace those learning experiences, right? Instead of like being so against it, I guess.
100%. And I guess that's like a very common thought that while we're going through uni as well, that we always think of, right? It's like, I just need to get through uni, just need to finally pass and get through my degree, and then I can chill out. But again, it's not like that. Once you enter the workforce, you still gotta learn, you still gotta improve, or you're just gonna fall behind. But I guess a big one is that I think the reason we're talking about this is because it's hard to do, and most people don't do it because we need that work-life balance, right? We're not trying to live to work. We're trying to work to live.
Mm.
So I think one of the biggest things for me was just finding the right balance for what works for me and what is helping me continue to grow my skill set, but also allow me to do other things that is important to me in life, right? Like hanging out with friends, spending time with family, working on my hobbies, doing like side hustles and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing I think is to learn while at work is like the best thing that you can do. And what I mean by that is, and how you can do that is just find a job that allows you to, that is beyond your skill set, right? Because then you'll be constantly learning there.
Mm.
Maybe not explicitly, you might not be studying for things explicitly. Some places you actually do that, and I think you can speak to that, Cal. But
Yeah.
um, if you're constantly pushing yourself to work in a job where you're not like really fully sure of how to do everything, it's not like very comfortably in your skill set, it's something that makes you uncomfortable, then I think you're good. Like you don't have to do a lot of extra work outside of the work hours, because if you're learning 8 hours a day, 5 days a week,
Yeah.
none of that, like a lot of you're good. Like
Yeah.
if someone who only learns outside of work, even if they put in the 3 extra hours a day, they're burning themselves out, and they're also just not learning as much as you. So I think the number one rule that, for me at least, is that if I feel like I'm no longer learning in my role, it's really time to start thinking about bouncing.
That's
And
interesting. Like a lot of people at my company who I've spoken to, and coming from like a slightly larger company at Cisco, like there's a lot of lateral movement.
mm,
And like when I speak to a lot of the people who are deeper in their careers, they're definitely, it comes up a lot. There's definitely like a sentiment of, yeah, make sure that you're not like too stagnant in that role, or things don't bore you out a bit too much. Because if they do, make sure you talk to your managers, make sure you talk to the right people to put yourself into positions that you actually want to be in, right? And it's very common. A lot of these like, managers, they're like, oh yeah, I'm currently working in this vertical, but actually a few years ago I was over there, and like I kind of just worked through everything that I wanted to work through over there, and it kind of just got stale. And yeah, and so I just jumped ship. And the other part to it was just like being ready to take a couple steps backwards. Like especially when you have lateral movement, you're gonna sacrifice, like, I guess the uh the tenure, like the kind of what is that word? I forgot. But like the experience in that vertical, right? Like the grade, I guess, and you kind of take a couple steps backwards just to kind of like restart somewhere else. But
mm,
I remember just hearing like people remind me that it's okay to take a couple steps backwards as long as you continually find like work that's actually challenging,
mm,
um, and actually pushing you so that you're growing, and you don't kind of just get stuck in those positions.
definitely. And I guess what's your experience been like learning at work? Because that's basically most of what you're doing right now, right?
Yeah. So this is, I guess, like the way that the most ideal way to approach it is that you invest early and you think about it as early as possible, and that is right when you're actually choosing your job, and factor that into when you are choosing your jobs, which I think is something that's quite important. Some of us might not. We're kind of just like so desperate for jobs sometimes we just go for it, right? But if you do have the privilege to choose between a couple places, congratulations. Um, I think it's another consideration that you'd want to throw into the mix is definitely, will I be learning, right? And that was a huge part for me as well. I didn't think of this consciously, like, but I had the internship back at Salesforce, and I think when kind of reviewing a lot of how their grad program was going to play out, or how the year was going to play out over there, or how the year was going to play out over at Cisco, one of the biggest kind of attractions with the Cisco program that I am in right now was just that they seemed like they were going to support me a lot more over here, and they were willing for me to just like spend time learning and getting across many things before throwing me in the deep end. And that was important for me. It was like, yeah, um, there's actually like a learning element to it. So I don't really have to put that much effort beyond work, right? To go and look for things to study, certifications to sit. They're kind of like baked into my program, baked into my day anyways.
Yeah,
And man, that will save you so much time. Like if we're talking about learning while working full time, make your full time job learning. Oh, that is the perfect sweet spot, isn't it?
easy. Yeah, because again, that's like 5 days a week where you're learning for a good amount of time. Maybe not every single hour of that day, right? But if you're constantly putting in a few hours every day just learning, you'll be okay. Even if I think if this is just, if you only take one thing away from this podcast, it's that we think that you should just constantly be finding jobs where you're learning on the job, and you'll be okay at that point. So again, if you, like Cal was saying, if you have multiple job offers, go with the one where you feel like you'll learn the most, as opposed to maybe marginally, like that'll pay you marginally more. And there's a balance, of course. If a place pays you like twice as much, yeah, okay, maybe maybe think about that one a bit more.
Yeah.
But I think just try to avoid the danger of getting too stagnant, getting too comfortable somewhere. And I think the amount of comfort, or the amount of discomfort that you're willing to take, is very person dependent, right? If you're a complete masochist, and as soon as you've got the job down, you look to switch immediately. That's cool, and I think that's probably the fastest way to to always be learning. But maybe instead you're like, okay, I've got it down, but let me really master it for like 2 years, maybe 3 years before you start like looking to move on. But I think be wary of that. It's like the longer you're in that job, the more comfortable it gets, the easier it gets, but also the less you're learning.
Yeah, like I guess we're definitely quite privileged in that sense, where our careers are kind of designed in that way. Like we've been afforded the opportunities to constantly learn on the job. But I guess the way that you factor that in is just, yeah, make sure that you're thinking about this when you're making your decisions, right, early on. But yeah, like definitely a bit luckier on my end. So I haven't actually had to really do much for myself to kind of go out beyond my work hours and like chase things down and really put in that extra effort, put in that extra work. So I'm not too sure. Like that's why I kind of wanted to hear more about, like, because I know you've done a bit more, definitely so much more than I have, right, Justin?
Mm-mm. Yeah, because I have periods in my life where I'll be studying outside of work hours as well, right? But for me, it's the right amount isn't to do it all the time. I like to think of them more in sprints, in terms of, okay, right now I feel like it's time for a change. Like I want to find a new job or something. I'm going to spend the next 3 months or so putting away a few days a week, maybe like 2, 3 days, maybe like Tuesday, Wednesday nights, and Saturday afternoons, where I'll go study and properly learn a new topic, like get ready for like job interviews kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't have something that's constantly running, because right now I'm not doing any outside of work study, just because I don't feel like I need it right now. I'm learning heaps at my full-time job, and it's just not a big deal right now. But eventually there will become a time where, like, okay, I want to do another sprint in terms of working on technical skills for my career. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll take another 3 months to start carving out more time in my week. And I think the way to be able to do that is just to be very clear on your goals. Because if you're just studying for the sake of studying, right, I feel like a lot of times it can be wasted effort. Because if you're studying a certification for an area that you don't even want to move into, then what's
Right.
the point? I feel like anything you're learning should be in service of what you feel like your career goals are. So even I guess at your full-time job, if the things you're learning aren't really in the right direction of where you want to take your overall career,
Yeah.
then maybe that job isn't actually for you. Maybe the things that you're learning actually aren't relevant to what your long-term goals are, right? If you want to be in finance, if you want to do like trade stocks and whatever, just because you probably shouldn't take an accounting role, even if you're going to learn heaps there, because you're going in the wrong direction, even if you're moving very far or very quickly in that direction.
Oh, dude, yeah. Like I was gonna say, I don't know if this is. It was just kind of like brewing in my mind, but like I don't wanna come across as like, oh, like you gotta be putting in the extra 5 hours after work to be studying, or else that's why you deserve to be in the position that you are, whatever it is, right? Okay, I don't want to come across like that. Please don't like. Hopefully you don't interpret it like that. But what I was thinking was like, when you do put in that extra effort, I think a lot of times if it is voluntary and it gets you excited, it's a great litmus test on like, hey, is this career for me? Like, because am I actually willing to take the like continue, right? Kind of invest a bit more time, like, and I don't want you to invest in forever, like no work-life balance at all. But it's like, hey, these moments, these like sprints that you were talking about, like you clearly have the incentive to do so because deep down there is a real drive to continue your career in that path, right? Whereas I think sometimes we kind of just go and float through a career. We don't necessarily engage with it as much because we're just kind of getting across our day-to-day tasks. But then, and that doesn't really like shake you. Like, do I really want to be doing this right now? Is this really the job that I want, right? But then when you start to think about, am I actually putting in time and effort to maybe progress that career, right? To say study a little bit once in a while. And like that idea just like irks you. I don't even want to study for this stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah, probably you might not be sitting in the career that you want, right? Like, or kind of the job that you intend for your long-term goals.
That is such a good point, Cal. And I like the way you phrase it. It's a good litmus test because
Yeah.
when I put in these sprints of studying, it's because I'm genuinely interested in these topics, and I kind of want to pivot. And I guess that's another thing that's always occurred. The reason why I do these sprints always tends to, I don't do it like out of nowhere if I'm like super happy with my job. It's always like, I kind of want to pivot a little bit. I want to go closer to this area. I want to do and I want to move more towards this direction. So it's always slightly adjacent. It might not be a full pivot. Like, I hate computer science. I'm going to go study electrical engineering instead, right?
Regression. You're going backwards, buddy. No, I'm kidding.
It's always moving more towards like, okay, I've tried this out. There are a few things that in it that I don't particularly like. This area seems pretty interesting. I don't dread like putting in the hours to put time into this. It's not like the easiest thing in the world. It's not like, ooh, like after work, I'm so excited to like study, like I can't wait, right? But it's something that I don't hate. It's like, oh yeah, it's not the easiest path. It's not the path of least resistance. That would be like watching Netflix or something. But once I start to do it, I'm not hating it. I'm like, okay, this is pretty fun. I just needed the bit of extra motivation to start doing it. And I think that's a super good point. I think everything that whenever you're learning, it should be in service of a greater goal of like you moving more towards the direction that you want to be moving in.
Yeah, no, for sure, dude. And I guess like that's if you think about it like that, it's empowering, right? Coming back to why is this kind of necessary? It's empowering because if you are stuck in something that you're not really too super happy about, these kind of keep your doors open. It keeps your opportunities open so that you can sidestep into something else. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to take the fattest sidestep ever. It could be like slight adjustments and you can slowly drift off into where it is, like slowly move towards your North Star, what it is that you actually want in your long term, right? And obviously I'm talking this like in an abstract sense. So in the real world, there will be so many more complications to this, but I feel like it would, it's one of those things where you can kind of put faith into like the method and just kind of like go along with it. And I'm sure you're doing something right. One of those things where it's like, I might not know exactly where you're going to go, like in like a couple months after you study this, after you get across this certification, this like extra degree, post-grad degree or whatever it is. But I'm sure you're taking a step closer, right, to what it is that you actually want. If you put in that effort, you kind of take out that time to go and study those things.
For sure. And I guess there's a really cool concept. It's called career capital that I picked up from Cal Newport. And I guess it's great if you know where you want to go, right, where you want to take your career. But oftentimes you don't know. You maybe can see where you want to be in 2 years, but in 10 years, I don't know what I'm going to be like in 10 years. But the idea of career capital is that you're building skills, technical skills, or just good skills in general that are in demand. and you're kind of accumulating this value, like you're making yourself a more valuable employee or a more valuable member of society. And when you've built up enough, you can start going for jobs that give you that you have a lot more choice in terms of the jobs that are offered to you. You also can negotiate for things that that you may not necessarily be able to negotiate for if you've got low career capital, if you don't have in-demand skills, and employers are pretty whatever. It's like, okay, you can work for us if you want, but we're not super fast if you don't. If they like really want, like, please work for us, you can like negotiate for more time off or more flexibility in your hours or more interesting projects. So I think I guess kind of the way I would word this podcast is, how do you continue to build career capital while working full time? And the way you do that is by building useful and in-demand skills, not just technical skills.
Which you can afford for yourself if you choose. Like you're clever with your choice at the beginning as well, right? So it's like kind of all just ties into each other, but you want to be like thinking ahead, like as often as possible, and kind of thinking a few steps beyond immediately what it is that's in front of you, right? And I mean, that's at the core of it. At the core of it, I'm sure there's also, we're talking about all these other things, but at the core of it, there is career progression. Like if you want to ethically move through your career without leveraging nepotism, without brown nosing too much, you wanna get through it like on merit, right? You want to try and play into that meritocracy a little bit. This is a great way of getting through your career and like kind of progressing. But even then, just building career capital, that's a fire term. But like, I think what I heard like from one of the other managers, like when I was talking to them, was just that on just using that language, it was just, hey, don't be afraid to take a pay cut if you get the chance to build that capital, the career capital, right? So don't be afraid. Obviously, don't go working for free. Don't go working for free and like don't exploit yourself. But it's like, hey, if I'm just like losing out on like a little bit here, marginal salary benefits over here, but then I really have so much like career capital, or I'm afforded the opportunity to learn so much more over there. Like definitely kind of take those opportunities and try your best for as long as you can to ignore things like that, like salary and what is it, like the job titles and the grades. At Cisco, they grade everything, so it's like all numbered and stuff like that. And she was just telling us like to avoid that as much as possible. Be real with it. Sometimes you just got to be real. It's like, I need to survive, bro. But like where you can, try your best to kind of avoid those things and try to prioritize it a little lower than your career capital, which I think is fine, man. That's cool.
100%. I guess so. We know, okay, why we should be like spending our time like learning while we're working full time. We're trying to build that career capital. What should we be learning? Well, you got to think about what your goals are and like and where you think and you want to go, and what technical skills, what soft skills are going to be in service of that. And I guess in a very fine-grained way, let's talk about the exact things that you can be learning. And you do a lot of technical certifications, right, Cal? Industry certifications.
Yeah.
What do you think of those? Or do you mind explaining what those are and what you think?
Oh, yeah, dude. For sure. And this is kind of where I was hoping the conversation would go, because I guess I have a bit more experience here. This is all I've been doing for the past few months, just like getting across certifications. And at first I thought it was like, whatever. Like I didn't really see the impact of it, or I couldn't imagine the impact or how powerful things like that could be in the industry. And this is very niche. This is very anecdotal, right? But I will speak on like the certifications that I've been working across in the networking space. So when it comes to the networking space, like I guess my company Cisco has a very large market share, and it's like a really big brand name, and they themselves run a lot of certifications that people can take to make sure, or to kind of like show employers that, hey, I actually know this technology. I'm up to date with these certain technologies and things like that. Like I understand these architectures and stuff. And so I've just been going across that. And the funny thing is I have to do it as a part of my grad program, but I have a couple friends who are working in the networking space, and they work for consulting firms, and they work for Transport New South Wales, right? And they still have to get those certifications, or it's like being recommended by their managers to kind of learn about those things and try to study up for those certifications, right?
So like a
But
network engineer from like Transport for New South Wales would
yes,
come to Cisco. You have like a course outline of some sort, or like study materials, and then you
yeah,
eventually do an exam. Is
yeah.
how I understand it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Honestly, it's like we release so much content, or Cisco releases a lot of content. They have like their own like networking academy, so they really built like a whole ecosystem around learning and kind of upskilling to get ready for these certifications. But you can always leverage things like Udemy, and these things are popular enough so that you can find resources anywhere and everywhere. There's a specific one that we use called CBT Nuggets, and it's just like the great thing about, I guess, networking is that it's such a well-established industry, so there are always resources for me there when I'm looking. That's always made it a little easier. I'm sure if you're learning something a bit more niche, a bit more bleeding edge kind of technology, you're on your own, you're reading white papers, you're reading research papers and things like that. Yeah, but for me and like say these network engineers, right, it's really good to have these in your back pocket, because I mean, there's one thing to kind of it's one thing to be able to say talk about it in an interview. Yeah, these are all the skills that I actually know about, right? But on your resume, it's another way to communicate that you have. It's like a preemptive way of communicating, hey, I actually have these skills, right? And these certifications, they're not like the end all be all. Oh, just because this guy has a few certifications, he's like the ultimate genius. Okay, that's not really the weight that people put on it, but it's definitely a nice a nice entree. Like if I'm trying to know this individual as an employee, if I want to see how valuable he can be to my company, these certifications definitely play a part. It varies depending on how well the employers value it, but these certifications that I didn't really see value in them first, but like now kind of getting across some of them, and being in the industry, talking to a few more people, and like kind of hearing everyone's story, you
Mm.
kind of see the impact of the brand name. You see the impact of having like this rubber stamped certification sticker on your LinkedIn or something like that, right?
Mm.
Because they take these very seriously as well. Like these exams, they take it as serious as possible, because they know if they don't take it seriously, it loses all credibility, right? So like the exam itself, the content itself, they try to curate it as well as they can, so that you're learning relevant technologies, and it can be valuable to companies across the industry. But I think the other thing was just that I'm kind of insecure. Like I'm a massively insecure guy. So when it comes to like putting yourself out there in front of employers, right? Why do they want me? I guess I can talk about it, but when I talk about it, it feels very abstract, right? And these certifications really lock it down in paper. Why do you want me? Oh, like I have like these 5 certifications, right? These are my skills, like really tangible skills that I just don't have in my mind. I've kind of pulled out, and I've put it down on paper, and
Mm.
I feel like that's that's a huge part for me. It gives me that security, and it ensures me, and it gives me like, it allows me to sleep at night, because I know in 5 years time, right, wherever it is that my career goes, I have these under my belt. I can always flex out, right, and I can kind of negotiate in conversations, in interviews and things like that. And I remember talking to one of the other account managers, right, and he was just saying how like he was thinking about, just because in his position it's very much relationship management. Hey, I'm talking to customers, and I'm just a sweet talker kind of thing. That's kind of like what you do in sales, right? And I asked him like, what about 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Like, what is he worried about, right? And he was talking about how being in sales, it's a bit scary, because you can your skills can be made redundant very quickly, or it just doesn't feel like you've developed. Say you've done sales for like 5 to 10 years or something like that. You look back and you're like, what have I actually made for myself, right? Besides, I'm really good at talking to people at this point. He said that he felt insecure about like not having concrete skills, and so he went back and he started to learn more technical things beyond his job, because that gave him like that sense of comfort,
Mm.
like a sustainability in his career, not just like looking for the next 5, 10 years, but beyond that, right? Beyond that, he can go, yeah, no, no matter where I go, no matter how long I stay at this place or I leave this place, it's like I can look back and I can carry these with me. And it's a lot easier to communicate your skills when they're kind of hardened in certifications, or hardened in these extracurricular learnings that you're doing post study and stuff like that.
Mm. 100%. And I guess like I feel like the major part of the certification that it provides the most value is what you learn, right? But if it's an industry respected certification, like the ones from Cisco or the ones from Google or
Mm.
AWS kind of thing, They hold a lot of value as well because employers know like, okay, these guys have put in the hours to actually study this and properly pass the exam and everything.
Yeah.
Um, and like you were saying, it's a very nice way to just like sit back, look on your LinkedIn, pass these like
Exactly.
certifications.
Yeah.
Feels good. I made progress this year,
Yeah.
and
No, like it's sometimes it's self-serving. I find it self-serving in that sense, where it's
a
like
bit
it makes me feel
narcissistic.
good inside. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I guess another great thing that I think that's good about certifications is that if you don't know what to study, if you don't know exactly what direction you want to go in, these are nicely curated courses or the material from like a big company. They're like, okay, these are the things that are quite useful in industry right now,
Mm.
and I find that the skills you learn from them are generally immediately applicable. We talked about like um, the half life of knowledge, right? Like how long knowledge tends to stay with you, and I feel like the things that you learn from uni have very long half lives. They're very fundamental. They're like maths, fundamental algorithms and stuff, but they don't immediately help you right now. If I'm trying to set up a database,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I know database theory, but how do I
Mm.
actually do it? That's
Mm.
where these industry certificates, like they come in, they teach you things that are immediately relevant. I feel like they decay faster. Like I do a
Yes.
certification this year, I might not. Things might change within 2 years. The tech industry moves fast, right? But you need that balance of things that are going to serve you long term, but you also need knowledge that serves you short term. And industry certifications, if you're trying to pivot right now or find some very quick wins in terms of getting some career capital, I think they're great ways to they're great ways to do it.
Hey, that's mad that you contrasted it back with like what uni offers, right? Because we also don't want to discount. Why spend your time at uni then? Just do these certs, forehead. Like, no, the things that you learn at uni, super fundamental, right? Where everything else is going to build upon. And to do these certs beyond it, it just rounds out. It rounds you out in terms of what you're actually learning and what you're going to be applying. And definitely, like, it's much more connected, right? And just because uni is slightly more disconnected, I see the sentiment a lot where it's like I could have just skipped uni and done a boot camp. Like I guess it will get you somewhere, but it's definitely a bit more. Once again, for me personally, I sleep better at night knowing that I have gone through that degree, gotten the fundamentals down, and I can kind of draw back or fall back to those fundamentals when necessary or when I've pivoted in the future, right?
100%. Because I think that's the biggest thing, right? Yeah, you do these boot camps and stuff, and they teach you things that are really relevant right now,
Mm.
but they don't teach you from the fundamentals. That's why it's so fast. You can get through it so much quicker than a uni degree, and that's because uni, you're really learning from the ground up. You're learning all of the core things that will help you through your entire career. Because if you do a web dev course, React might be out of fashion in 5 years, and then
Right.
those pieces of knowledge have decayed. You've got to learn
Mm.
new things, and you're
Mm.
constantly on a hamster wheel. Whereas if you learn more fundamental things, they'll serve you for just a lot longer. So you need both. You need both.
Yes, definitely.
I might actually start looking into doing some certifications, Cal.
Ooh.
Um, my workplace uses GCP a lot, Google Cloud Platform.
Oh yeah.
So I'm thinking about doing a data engineering one next year.
Yeah.
So pretty excited for that. Pretty excited for that.
How like so they is that something that they've suggested or it's something that you've just identified? Oh, this is something that I could probably better myself in.
It's something they've suggested. So
Oh.
I'm quite lucky in that my workplace they give explicit time for just more exploration. You can like work on proof of concept type projects, or you can go study like a certification that
Hmm.
may eventually bring value to the company. So we get 1 day a week for that. That's our chapter time,
Yeah.
and that's I think that's I'm going to be spending a good number of my chapter days just studying for this certification, and I really like that. So like a lot of tech companies they give you what's called 20% time, where it's a lot more free. It's not like things that need to be delivered right now and provide
Yeah.
immediate business value. If you can just kind of spin it like, this certification might eventually be useful for these kinds of projects, and I'll just explore and I'll get back to you guys on like what kind of what's out there, right? A lot of tech companies will give you the time to do that, which is a good trend. I like that they give you this space to learn and explore on the job.
Dude, that's mad. Like we were saying before, choose the jobs wisely, make these considerations of will this job actually support me through like these different learning journeys, right? This is exactly it, right? This is like manifested. This is exactly what it looks like in the industry, making sure that, and did you kind of like get this, did they tell you about this early on, right? In the contract, in your interviews, or was this something you just kind of found yourself in?
It's part of their sell. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, we've
yeah.
got this like 20% time. This is why you should work for us.
It's good. It's good. I'd fall for it. Honestly, I'm a big fan. That's like another thing. And I remember back at Salesforce, that was another big sell, and they were big champions of it, because if they do have these programs, it's definitely a selling point for their roles. It's definitely a way to attract talent. So they'll really blast it like, hey, like there's always, I remember back at Salesforce, they were like, oh, we have this separated budget, $5,000 or something like that, ridiculous, just so you can take certs and like go through extra programs beyond what it is that you want to be doing, and they'll give you time off whenever it is that you need to kind of like take these certs and stuff like that. And obviously, they'll fit you in around when there's like lulls and slower times during the year, but like, yeah, like there is that support, right? Or they're willing to, at the very least. And I think that's something that you want to look out for. Like, are these, the salaries like this, but what are they expecting me to do day to day? Are they going to give me the breathing room to study? Are they going to give me the breathing room to upskill and continually progress? And even from the manager's perspective, oh my God, I know this is one of the activities that I had to do in the first few months. I've spoken to so many different managers across verticals in my company, and like one of my favorite ones, I'm playing favorites now, but one of the favorite ones that I've spoken to, he was just saying like, as a manager, or like good managers ensure that there are ways for your team to move out. So it's like, he was saying how as his job, he's trying to say, advertise what his team's about and make sure he can attract the best talent. But at the same time, look outwards and make sure that there are opportunities for his own team to move beyond his own teams to kind of go where they want to go, right? And facilitate that kind of movement, facilitate that kind of growth. And I was like, that's just so wholesome. I love that so much. It's actively thinking for your team. And it's like, if the best for this individual under me is to move to this other team because he shows like potential over there, I need to make that opportunity available to him. And that's what makes a good manager, right? And I was like, beautiful. And I was like, I might be at the right place. Now that was probably one of the moments where I was like, I might be at the right place, right? This is the culture that I kind of want to be a part of.
I love that, because it's such a realistic and a very compassionate take as well, right? Because I feel like a lot of times, maybe it's just my impression, but I feel like a lot of times the go is kind of like, you should pretend that like I'm gonna be here forever, right?
Yeah.
And your manager's kind of like, oh yeah, I expect this employee to be at this company for like super long, for like the rest of their career, kind of
Don't
thing.
bail on me. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not realistic anymore. And I think if both the employer and the employee thinks in terms of this, like, yeah, maybe I will leave, like in a couple years, like in 2 years, but if you kind of acknowledge it, you can think, okay, how can I best provide the most value for the company right now, knowing that I'll be treated right. Like my manager's thinking about what's best for me even after I leave this place. I feel like it's a lot more honest of a relationship. You're not playing like you're not in La La Land where like you're both
Like,
putting up
facades for no reason, and then people get surprised like that, right? Because then you will leave. Like eventually you're like, man, stop this, I'm out. And then the manager's like, oh, what's going on? Like how am I supposed to cover this role, right? So
I think we were family.
Yeah, I thought we were like besties, kind of thing. How dare you betray me? But there's no betray. It's like, it's my life, it's my career. But like, I'm not here to serve you forever. Like, I'm here as long as it benefits me as well. It's a mutual relationship, right? And just hearing him say like he's been putting in so much effort, to kind of build opportunities for his team to leave, as well as to build opportunities into his team. I was like, I think if you as a manager, if you're across that, then you wouldn't have to worry about people leaving, because you actively have a pipeline of real talent, right, into your own program, and you don't really have to worry about like, oh, this guy's really good, but like I never, like, that's the thing. He was saying how some toxic managers would like really hold on like a toxic ex almost kind of thing. It's like, can't let go because he's so good at this job or whatever it is, or like he can't afford to lose this guy, or he can't be bothered like upskilling a new grad into these programs, so he'll just keep this guy and like prevent him from finding opportunities. I was like, I love his compassion, his approach to kind of like that whole situation.
Mm, I love that. And I guess one thing I just wanted to quickly cover is okay, well, there's industry certifications that you can get. Other ways that you can constantly learn, build that career capital is you could go to uni part time. That's an option. Neither of us have done that before.
We have a lot of friends though who are doing that right now, aren't we?
We do,
Don't we?
yeah.
Yeah,
You
which is
can.
intense.
It seems very difficult. I might at some point, but I'll talk about that in a bit. There's online courses like Udemy, Coursera. You can get textbooks, and it really depends. You would know your industry better than we do. Like I feel like the stuff that or the resources we talk about are very tech centric. So apologies if it's not super relevant, but that's all we can speak to, right? Um, so but let's see how you can arrive at like a nice study plan for you to build your career capital. And I guess we'll try it on both of us. And I think the first thing to talk about is what is your career goal right now? Like, what direction are you trying to move towards? So I'll speak for myself first, and I've been like, and it constantly changes, right? Every like year or so, I've updated my understanding of what I like, what I'm interested in right now, and you just got to understand the direction will constantly change.
Yeah.
You've just got to pick whatever you're interested in right now, follow it to your heart's content, and then if it changes, no worries. Life is like it's not a straight line; it's a zigzag, right? Could be a circle. I don't know.
I don't know if you want that, to be honest.
Yeah. But for me right now, what I envision for myself is working in this area of machine learning called reinforcement learning. And the reason for that is because the reason I got into machine learning in the first place was because of this AI called AlphaGo, which took the Go world by storm. So Go is this like board game, this ancient Asian board game, and it the top engines in the world could not even compete with like the lowest level professionals. Whereas chess, even in the 90s, was starting to smash the world champion, stuff like that. And the reason for that is just because the brute force method doesn't work. There's so many more permutations in terms of how a Go game can go as opposed to a chess game. So the traditional way of coming up with these game engines just can't compare to human intuition. But they came up with this AI using reinforcement learning, and it came 10 years early. Like people were expecting an AI that was at this level in maybe 2025, 2030, but this came in like 2014, 2015, and it shook like the Go world because no one was expecting it. Came out of nowhere. Google DeepMind just came out and just killed the world champion, won 4-1. And what was like amazing about this was its style feels very human. It was built on a lot of intuition, right? The way it learns is a lot more similar to how we learn. You like just play the game and then you build experiences over time, as opposed to the traditional game engines, which are like a bunch of like PhDs will sit around and come up with will theorize about the game and come up with a bunch of rules. Is my very basic understanding of how that way of building the engine works. But this engine, it really feels like just an amazingly talented person is the one that came up with these strategies. And from what I read, it's actually a lot easier for people to learn from it, like Magnus Carlsen, the world champion in chess. He studies game engines that follow this method, like the reinforcement learning method, because it just feels like, this is something that's actually possible. It's not like the traditional programs that just compute every single thing. Like a person can't do that, whereas you can kind of learn from these these new like types of engines. But
So he's turned around and like he's studying from them. He's finding self-improvement as like the world champion. He's like, that's his way of like staying sharp and like being competitive against others. He goes to like an AI machine kind of thing. And he goes, let me verse this robot that's been like taught through reinforcement, that reinforcement method that you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
And he learns through it. What the hell, bro? Life is a circle, man. We've come all the way back around. Holy hell. Okay.
And when I was in uni, like I did a project on this type of machine learning, and it was basically just trying to teach it to play. It's called a cart pole game, where you just have a left and right arrow key, and then it's like a pole that's standing on a cart, and it's like kind of tilting, and you got to kind of move it along, like move it. If it's falling this way, you move it this way, and then it stays up, and you're just trying to keep it standing for as long as possible.
Okay.
And you just had to write code to teach that software to play this game really well. And one thing that I found was that so you kind of had like a memory bank of like 20 games or something that it could remember. That was just the architecture that we used. And then one beautiful thing about it was that it turns out you want to memorize games where you make a lot of mistakes. So you don't want to memorize the games where you did very well. You want to remember the games where you did poorly. And it's like, to me, that meant it's like a fundamental principle of learning. You learn more from your mistakes than you do from your
That's confirmation bias.
your success.
Or is that survivorship bias? Like very human elements to it that you're considering when you write that code, isn't it? That's crazy.
It's like, wow, the way this code learns feels very similar to like the way I learn. I just found that super interesting.
Yeah.
So, and that's a very nascent field right now. It's basically only in research. It's like starting to like make its way into industry a little bit. And I think that's the direction I want to take in terms of what I want to be learning, right? So I've got my goal, and we'll kind of build out a study plan from there. But I just want to ask you, Cal, like, do you have a general idea of the current direction that you want to take your career?
Yeah. So I guess I'm in the middle more so of my study plan, I guess. And I haven't really designed this study plan for myself. I've just kind of decided on the career. And luckily for me, they've prescribed the study plan for me. And that's basically my grad program. So from this August, or a few months back when I started, all the way to next year, August, I'll be kind of following through, making sure I get across these certifications. But I guess being this deep into this grad program, or having gotten this far, I have somewhat decided, like, yeah, maybe I will stay in like the sales side of things, right? Just stay as a sales engineer, right? Not sure where to go beyond that, right? And I think it's nice because the sales engineer role that I'm in right now, it still incorporates so much technicality to it that I'm not just kind of a salesperson, and I'm not really upskilling in that more concrete side of things. So I think, at the end of this, let's say I move into the next role, and actually kind of I work for a while in this role that I've been training for through this grad program, and I don't like it. I think it's not impossible for me to sidestep back to a more technical role, go back to some kind of I don't know, computer science or like software engineering type role where I'm just an engineer again, and like I'm in the back, not really talking to clients anymore. But right now it's kind of like half technical, half speaking to clients. So I'm really like developing technical skills and the soft skills and the chops that are necessary for me to be in front of a client. That's kind of the program right now. And the program looks like the first 6 months, it's just book study. We're just sitting in lectures. So luckily for me, I don't really have to put in much effort. I'm just like following along. So I'm in lectures, learning just straight up architecture, theory across all like the networking component that I'll eventually sell, or whatever it is that I want to choose. And the thing is, the way that they've designed it is that I guess Cisco's portfolio is so large, and they kind of play in so many different fields. They play in the enterprise networking side of things. So selling routers and switches to big companies like Woolworths and stuff like that, or even medium-sized businesses that like leverage wireless access points and things like that. All of that. That's one architecture. That's one silo, one vertical that they sell, right? And then they have security solutions. Okay, software solutions like DNS security, cloud firewalls, and all these things that once again businesses require, right? To set up proper infrastructure, you need security. Then you have data center.
Just to step back a little bit, I just wanted to poke a little bit more in terms of like your goal first, and then dive more deeply into like your actual study plan. So what it sounds like is maybe like the direction you're moving towards is becoming the best sales engineer or the best solutions architect.
Right. Yeah. So I guess if you you were to kind of like follow the hierarchy, it would be that a seasoned sales engineer or solution engineer becomes a solutions architect, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of just sit on bigger and bigger deals. But the reason why I kind of just walk through the 4 architectures is because they've
Yeah.
laid out the study plan so that you get across a touch of everything. And
Okay.
at the end of this year, I get to decide like, ooh, what
Okay.
did resonate with me, or what resonated with me over the last year? Like, okay, you learned enterprise networking, you learned security solutions, you learned their data center solutions, you learned their collaboration solutions. So Cisco also sells things like a Zoom alternative, right? WebEx. So,
Yeah.
okay, which one resonates with you the most? Which one do you find that excites you the most, right? Align that with what the company requires as well. Okay, we have these openings here and there. So what, like they try to kind of match what I want with what they need. And then at the end of next year, or at the end of my grad program next year in August, that's when I'll be deciding, okay, you know what, I'm going to commit to being this type of specialist. And then you kind of stick with that for a while. And then if that bores you, you can kind of just sidestep and then move into a different architecture, and hopefully that's what they kind of will allow me to do in the long run. But yeah, right now I'm kind of in the middle of the study plan, but the study plan doesn't necessarily have like I'm going exactly here. Like generally speaking, yes, I want to be like the best architect, right? Solutions architect. I want to be like a trusted advisor. Clients can come to me and have like comfort in my knowledge and my depth of knowledge and my and all of that, right? And so they can come to me to ask about their issues, and I can hopefully help them help design all these solutions. But where am I designing these solutions? I'm not actually sure yet. And so hopefully through all the classes that will put me through and the job rotations that put me through in the next 6 months as well, like a combination of that will hopefully give me a better idea as to exactly what I want to be focusing on. But right now, not too sure yet, unfortunately.
And I guess this is a good example of like, I feel like I've been speaking very much towards moving towards a particular goal, like a particular position, I guess, as a goal. But I think what you're showing is that you can have different goals, right? And I've had periods like this before. So would you say your current learning goal right now is more exploratory? It's learning as much as you can in many different areas of of networking, and that's like that's the goal. Just explore as much as possible, and then by the end of the year, you'll know which area you're most interested in.
Yeah, and remember, we talked about this last time. It's just like kind of starting out wide, right? And before you actually touch across everything first, and then yeah, that's the goal, right? Or that's I guess ideally that's what will happen. Something resonates with me in the next year. Something I study, something that I kind of come across. I'm like, yeah, this is something I want to like talk about. This is something I want to design solutions in, and then I'll just like send it from there.
Perfect. And I guess you have your goal, which is like explore as much as possible. Now let's try break that down, because I just want to talk through our thought process for the viewers, or so that if they want to do something like this, they can. So I guess like what should you be studying to meet this goal of exploring all of these areas? And I think for you, it's very straightforward. It's
Standard.
just follow the Cisco program.
And it's mostly certifications. But on top of that, also like certifications give you one side of the story. I really enjoy just talking to people in the industry. That's the other thing, and they really give you like the download, like what's the reality of everything, and what is it really like to be selling this thing, or what is it really like to be architecting this? Because from the certification side, yeah, once again, it tells you one side of the story. You don't really get to know everything. So yeah, for me, certs is definitely the baseline, and then everything on top. Hopefully, it's like on the job training, rotations, shadowing, and kind of following people around. But once again, a lot of those are just baked into my program, and I'm not really like going out of my way to look for them.
Perfect. So the things that you're actually going to be putting effort into is your certifications, which you don't need to do outside of work hours, right? It's just mostly on
kinda.
Okay.
Yeah,
do you mind talking a bit about that?
So I guess like there is so much to learn right now. So and they want to obviously they don't want to spend too much time like having me just sit around like study books and everything like that. So like in the day I might be in a class that will be teaching very specific Cisco things, and then I'll be taking certs that teach me the overall kind of like industry standard, right? And that and actually I don't want to come across like they're forcing me 9 to 5 classes every single day. We have weeks where they're just like, okay, for the next 2 weeks go study, right, and prep, because we want you guys to get assert by this date. So usually whenever our deadlines come around, they do kind of give us time off. And that's kind of mostly what my program's been revolved around.
Cool. And then the other portion of it was more of that on the sorry, on the job training, just talking to a lot of people and stuff.
Yeah, shadowing, and that will come in the second half of the year. Just kind of following around people around and following teams around, and just kind of seeing how things go, seeing where you can actually add value, which is good. I'm keen for that as well.
Perfect. And I guess that's one of the benefits of a grad program, right? It's like everything's nicely laid out for you, and you don't have
tried
to think,
and tested.
Tried and tested. You don't have to think too much and like spend too much of your own time, like working on these things. So again, I guess that just really shows the power of finding a job where you're learning on the job, and you can focus on other things like in your spare time.
Yeah.
I guess to kind of try break down my study plan now that we know that my aim is to work in reinforcement learning. I guess, okay, so the area that I think the role that I'm aiming for is what's called a research engineer role, which is basically you work on papers and stuff as well, but you're mostly implementing the code that researchers write. And that sounds like the perfect place for me, right? Because I don't feel like I'm smart enough to be like super switched on scientists. Those guys are like crazy. Right? You got to go through your PhD and everything. But I am interested in research. I think it's really cool, like reading papers and like working on the cutting edge. But I think the place that I'm most interested in is implementing research in industry, in the real world, building actual systems from this cutting edge research. So that's kind of, okay, I've broken it down to a little bit more concrete of what I want to know, of where I want to be. So what does it take to be like a research engineer? Well, you need really strong engineering experiences, which I'm building at my current workplace as a machine learning engineer. I'm learning about infrastructure. I'm learning the right to write code for these kinds of projects. But I feel like a component that's missing is more research experience. So I've worked on research projects before, but I feel like I need more. So potentially what I might be doing is going back to uni part-time to do my thesis. And then like the plan is maybe to do a thesis in reinforcement learning. So that's kind of my into that specific niche of machine learning, because most of the systems that I've worked with, and it's the main type of system, it's called supervised learning systems. And just the difference is supervised learning, it's like the machine learning algorithm will come up with an answer, and you have the right answer, and you just tell it whether it's wrong or right. Reinforcement learning models it differently. You don't really have the right answer. It's more the machine will do an action, and it will get some kind of feedback from its environment from that action. So just kind of different paradigms. So
we're deep diving today.
We're
teaching machine learning today. This is a machine learning lecture by Justin.
By Justin.
It's very interesting, but yeah.
So my study plan right now is build up those just technical skills for like building big systems from my job. I'm not studying at all part-time right now, like in my spare time right now. I am just chilling. Right? I'm straight chilling. I'm doing dancing. I'm going to BJJ. Because that's
having
housewarming parties. But eventually I might do a sprint where I'm just gonna work through a textbook for reinforcement learning, or I'm gonna eventually I'll probably end up doing a sprint for doing my data engineering GCP certificate. And the way I've done that in the past is I'll carve out maybe 2 nights a week, and then a Saturday afternoon, maybe like another 2 hours. That's like 6 hours in the week where I'll just study up. And I've put those in my calendar, because if it's not in my calendar, it's not going to happen, right? I'm not going to like after work, I was like, ooh, I feel like doing some studying
Yeah.
today. It's just not gonna happen. So I
Yeah.
feel like it's very important if you're gonna study outside of work hours, you gotta pencil them in and pencil it in to whatever feels right for you. I
Yeah.
prefer having sprints and
Mm.
having like maybe 6 hours a week to do it, but maybe you prefer always like constantly studying, but maybe just 2 hours a week, or
Yeah.
maybe you're just a gun and you love your industry and you study every single day, like one
Yeah.
hour every single day.
Yeah.
I think about what is palatable to you. Like
Yeah.
obviously, more hours means you're gonna reach a goal faster, but if you try it out and in practice, like you just don't stick to it, it probably means you're aiming too high. Maybe for your life right now, studying 2 hours a week, just 2 hours on a Saturday, is all that you can do, or all that you're interested in doing,
Mm.
and that's completely fine. So I think,
Dude, I don't know how you do this though, because you're very independent, and like with these say sprints, you're taking them by yourselves, right?
yeah,
By yourself, sorry. And like just looking back, like with the recent certification that I took, because like Patty and a few others, like they needed it for their network engineering jobs as well. We kind of studied together, and like yeah, I'm interested in these certs. You know, they're relevant to my degree and everything like that. But I feel like I thrive off other people's energy. So like we penciled in once again, like we had to do this. We had to pencil it in. Saturdays, like we'll come together and we'll smash through some of this content, right? And it made it significantly better for me, like just studying through with some people. And it's very difficult to kind of keep in touch with a circle that will then kind of follow through a career that's similar to yours, right? And that's something that you might not actually find. It's a once in a blue moon kind of thing. But I've always found, yeah, like just being able to do it with someone else. Like if you can find anyone else, and this is where your work friends will come in. A lot of my study outside of work was with the rest of my cohort, the rest of the other people from the grad program, and that made it so much easier. Right, doing it alone sometimes can be difficult. Find the inspiration in other people, depend on other people, man. It's all right if you have that luxury, that is.
definitely. And I wish I could study with friends, right?
Yeah.
But it's just um, oftentimes like the things I studied previously, like friends, like they're just not doing the same thing, or like the
Mm-hmm.
hours just don't line up. But I was doing study sessions every Saturday actually,
Oh.
during lockdown. I would just hop on like Google Hangouts, and it's just 2 hours every week where we would hop on and like we would just all work on our own things, and it was a great way to stay motivated, because
Yeah.
it felt like there was something socially accountable about it, where
Yes.
it's like I'm kind of the one that organized it. Kind of it's a bad look if I just don't do it this way. It's like, I'm not feeling.
Mm.
I don't feel like it.
Mm.
Like I just won't do it. Like I felt like I had to turn up kind of thing, and it's better with friends. So if you can, yeah, make a study group. But in practice, I think you also need the ability to just hold yourself accountable, because
Mm.
oftentimes I find these study groups aren't long lasting. Um,
Oh, okay.
you can hold it together for a little while. Like
Yeah.
if you have a shared goal, like okay, we're all going to pass this cert together.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's pretty realistic to
Mhm.
like keep it going for a while. But if it's just like I'm just going to study 2 hours every week,
Yeah.
people may drop off.
Yeah, because I guess not everyone's learning every single week, and it kind of comes in phases. You know,
Mm.
and you're only really like bunkering down and studying in your sprints and stuff like that. But you know what? That sounds mad, man. I wish I just had a few more people who were like down, because sometimes I do get lonely studying, and I just kind of want to be in the premise of someone else. You know what I mean? That is also studying, like doing the same thing.
Yes.
Um, it's something about it, man.
Something
I
like
don't know.
study groups are fun. They're
Yeah.
good. They keep you motivated.
Even as an adult,
Even as an adult.
I hope I can say that as an adult, like this, being this old. But yeah, like even as an adult, right? Like even this deep into my career, it's like yeah, they're still very helpful, man.
So just to recap on kind of what we've talked about, um, yeah, you want to be constantly learning even while you're working full time, building up that career capital, making yourself a more valuable employee, build those technical skills, and also move closer to the direction that you want to go in. And the way you do that is being very clear about what your goals are. Ideally, you're learning on the job if your job is nice enough to do that. If you're not really learning on your job during work hours, maybe time to like look for somewhere where you are constantly learning. And self studying is also an option. It's not the preferred option. Like you were saying, I do it sometimes, but honestly, it most of the value, I think you'll get most of the value from just learning on the job. It takes a lot of like effort to learn outside of your job, and the payoff isn't that high either. But it is also an option. So
sacrificing in a lot of like your work-life balance, which
yeah,
we are not big proponents of, right? We are very big on, let's make it very clear that you are not being exploited. No, that you were really enjoying yourself, man. You're making time to take care of yourself as well. That always comes first. But yeah, sometimes I think, when you're really driven for certain things, like you're extremely motivated to kind of get into that field, you'll probably be able to find some of that gas to get you through some of the self-study sessions. But yeah, not the most ideal, I guess.
And I guess just as a quick thing that I just want to throw in there as well is that I reckon a lot of times people have a bit of energy, like a bit of productive energy after work. They want to I want to pick up a side hustle, or like start doing Uber Eats or something, right?
Yep.
I feel like a lot of times I like where their head's at, and like I feel like if you're able to do that, it's like it shows that you're like you just have you're just on the grussel. You got that grind set.
Yeah,
and it's
the
really
grind set.
it's really good, right? But I feel like strategically, it's a poor choice because yeah, you're making like extra income, and maybe you can invest it. But I feel like a far better use of that extra energy is to study up and really improve your skills in your main career, and you'll be able to ask for like a much higher salary by leveraging those skills. So strategically, I think learning is a very good option rather than doing like random odd jobs as side hustles. If you're trying to build like a business or something, that's a bit different because there's like potential for it to scale like past like just your own hours. There's a potential for it to blow up. But if you're just doing like deliveries or something or working retail, it might be better to just study for your main career.
True. You already have that energy, right? Just kind of redirect it.
But what is your song recommendation for this week, Cal? Let's finish up.
I have just been listening to the same song over and over again this week. It's called Dance Baby by this artist. I was suggested, a friend at work kind of suggested for me.
Yeah.
Boy Pablo. It's very similar to Last Dinosaurs. I feel like I have kind of shown you a bit of Last Dinosaurs in the past, haven't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, so similar to that, it's kind of just more of that, and I've been like absolutely addicted to it this whole week and last. But yeah, check it out.
More of an indie vibe kind of thing.
Yes, like indie pop kind of thing.
Yeah. My song for this week was "Enemy" by Imagine Dragons, and it's from a show. It's called Arcane. It's the new League of Legends show. It's really good. Even if you haven't played League before, the show like stands on its own legs. It is very, very good.
A lot of high praise. Everyone I've spoken to is pretty much like, you gotta watch this. But I'm like, I don't know any of the LoL characters, and I don't know.
You don't need to, Cal. I reckon you'll, because it's really looking like they're gearing up for a full like cinematic universe, and a League of Legends cinematic universe, because this is just doing so well. They've always been on top of it. The game itself is kind of shit. Like I never play anymore, but I love the media around it. Like they always put out amazing music. They do crazy collabs. Yeah. Like they started their own K-pop band. They always collab with Imagine Dragons. So I love the media surrounding it. Arcane season 2 has already been announced, and yeah, it looks like it's gonna be a big thing.
Oh damn! The whole first season's already out, yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I have a bit of time off. I have a bit of idle time this week. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah. And well, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for being on the podcast with me, Cal. We'll see you guys next time.
Peace.